Well, people ask me why I'm put in the afternoon session. Yeah, because actually I'm a Chinese, so I should be put in the morning session. Yeah, but then because, my explanation is that because I'm a hybrid production, I'm a hybrid product, and therefore my Mandarin is actually not good, but I can understand, and therefore I think it's better for me to use English to share my own journey, looking for true play. 大家好，我是香港来的郑佩华，很高兴我有这个机会在这里跟大家分享我自己是怎么样。
I'm very pleased to share with you my journey of play, the journey of finding true play. I don't speak very good Mandarin. Please allow me to speak in English. You have to listen to our interpreters. I thank all the interpreters for their hard work.
And actually, it's my honor, to come here and to have this presentation. Today's topic, because it's really very personal. I'm someone from Hong Kong, and I'm talking about my own journey, looking for the practice of true play. And when I met Anji, today's talk will be Anji play, making the invisible visible in framing a play-based curriculum. Okay, it's actually my own perspective from someone coming from Hong Kong. Okay. As I mentioned, Hong Kong is a place that East meets West. And I myself, I born in Hong Kong, raised in Hong Kong, but I'm educated and having my undergraduate and my postgraduate studies, especially on play and early childhood in the West. And I have to enact my knowledge in Hong Kong, where there's many, many Chinese. I have a constant struggle of whether this Western knowledge can really work out a context-sensitive pedagogy of play in early childhood education. I do see the gap between theories and practice for the last 2 to 3 decades. And therefore, as a teacher-educator, I don't think the role to apply theory is just for the frontline teachers. It's not their own responsibility. And actually, I do see that it's a teamwork, including our policymaker, community, parents, as well as teacher-educator. I do see that teacher-educator also got the role of making the knowledge an applicable knowledge, a workable knowledge to support frontline teachers. So, after working for 2 to nearly 3 decades in early childhood education, I got something finding out the core issue of implementing play. Why is it so important? As you can see, earlier, our 3 presenters, the Chinese scholar, they also mentioned that it's really a challenge. I do find that the complex issue is because no one will regard play as an issue, or very few people, because they will think that it's a trivial activity for young children. Young children, of course, they will play. And it has been taken as a taken for granted practice in early years. But in the 90s, late 90s, concern is increasing over the quality of play implementation in ECE. and scholar finds out that it has been loosely framed and thus fail to challenge children's learning, or is too teachery so that it loses the value and benefits of play. And in OECD, they carry out a project, and actually the project research is by Professor Ingrid Premming Samuelson, and he has been called Finding the Gap Between Theory and Practice, and saying that it's a huge issue in early childhood education, and asking early childhood frontline teachers or educators to integrate play and learning. And a team of people actually have the concern and passionate of working, of finding learning through play. And therefore you can find that in 13 to 14, called by LEGO Foundation, a group of people met, and then we have the global network of learning through play. And actually some of them have come here. I saw Esther, and I saw Andre, the one who is going to present. And I also find Mitch, who's going to also present here. Okay, so this group of people advocates of play-based learning, and they do have this kind of interest, like all of you. And I conclude, in working, because this is my research interest, I find that there are 3 difficulties in implementing play at the moment. The first one is I find that it's very difficult to define play. In 2009, Fleet points out that it is difficult of arriving a single definition of play. In the 70s, actually, Cheng suggests that the environmental perspective, that you need to have an absence of adult involvement before you can say that it's play. And someone trying to see it from children's perspective is Robin. They said that it should be the active engagement of children that we say that is play. So if it's so difficult, and being a teacher educator who have to teach teaching and learning, I have to advise my student, how can you tell someone who is playing to someone who is not? Okay, someone who is a real player to someone who is not. We need to differentiate. And therefore, I try to look into the characteristics of play. I go to find Dewey. Dewey mentioned, instead of looking for the forms of play, we have to look into playfulness. But again, what is playfulness? And I look forward, to look back into the philosopher, Gadamer. Gadamer argues that actually play got great meaning. One side, we will think that it's just mere play. But on the other side, you have to be really very serious in play before you can say that it is real play. So seriousness is very important. And I also look for Chiksoman Han as how he can tell for a player. And then he puts forward flow. He said that flow is a stage of playfulness which has 6 qualities. The first one, clear goals that are imposed by the player, from the player themselves. The second one, they need to have concentrate attention, and loss of self-consciousness, an altered sense of time, intrinsic motivated, and the belief that the experience is worthwhile for its own sake. I guess when you go to Anji, you can actually find all those. Okay, then I go to Hong Kong. Though Hong Kong has been westernized, not yet. Sorry, I have to go back first. The first one, difficulty in defining play. The second one, difficulty in enacting it with learning. Okay. The issues in enacting play is also difficult because play is context dependent. It poses considerable challenge to frontline teachers. And yet, learning and teaching is more objectively oriented because we have clear aims and objectives. And therefore, we can see that even in England, Silver mentioned that most ECE play activities in UK were brief and purposeless. And a very renowned Chinese scholar, I guess many of you know him, is Professor Zhu Jiahong 教授. Is he here? And then he also mentioned that play and learning and teaching have different educational objectives in development of children. And the two notions are different in nature. And adopting play as opposed to teaching and learning inevitably leads to conflict and confusion in practice. And that is very popular in the late 90s. This is the second difficulty. And the third difficulty is enacting it in cultural specific contexts. We find that Lebanon, a Norwegian scholar, proposed that play is a cultural phenomena as it's deeply anchored in a child's culture. Take for example, studies of images of childhood so that Chinese children are expected to be guai, that means they need to be well behaved, and have to be behaved as small adults. They need to be sit still. And then the deep-rooted influence of Confucianism means that education and learning are often associated with effort in our Chinese culture. And therefore, as reflected by our Chinese saying, if another man succeeds by 1 effort, he will use 100 efforts. And if another man succeeds by 10 efforts, he will use 1,000. And let a man proceed in this way, and though dull, he will surely become intelligent. And though weak, he will surely become strong. Okay. Another old Chinese saying, also, diligence yields reward, while play gets nowhere. So you can see that play actually is very alien to our Chinese culture. And though Hong Kong has been westernized, has been colonized by, for the last 100 years, okay? But then still in our psychic, we are still very Chinese. Learning and teaching has been put in Hong Kong government's curriculum guidelines since the 1986. And in the turn of the century, 2001, I identify a behavioral interpretation of play in Hong Kong in which the learning outcomes were very vital. And therefore, play actually is used as a means to attract the initial attention of young children for the subsequent input. The subsequent input will be academic input. Okay? They feel happy. And then we try to learn recognizing game, recognizing words. Okay? Even though it's a dictation, we say that it's a word, a play to recognize words. And also, we got scholars like saying that the teacher-centered play-based activities in which children have no choice in participating as edged play. And therefore, we, Hong Kong, our teachers we are very good in designing, in making use of play as a strategy to help young children to learn. Okay, I was at one point, thinking that, well, in our culture, is it we can only work out educated play? And if it is like that, do we still go to learning through play? Do we still have room for learning through play? And also because you can see that our PISA result is so good. Our parents are so satisfied with the result. And Hong Kong is so prosperous. So why we have to change? Why we have to change our system? So I got a time that I'm really puzzled. Do we really need to change? Can eduplay be considered as play? And if so, is it fair to our own children? Is it fair for their own childhood? Do they have the right to play? And will there be any side effect if they don't have a chance to enjoy real play in their childhood? So I started having deep investigation. When our government is trying to invest money on a voucher system, I apply for a public policy funding research, looking into 20 schools all over Hong Kong, and inside there are 5 schools that is considered as very good schools in the QA report, the Quality Assurance Report. And then I try to look into the classroom scenario, and then I find that 18 schools out of the 20 preschool settings were using the commercial curriculum packages. And therefore, uniform practice were identified. For example, this school is talking about spring. 18 schools are talking about spring. Wow. Okay. And then it's difficult to weave children's here and now interests and experience. And because teachers were obsessed with the learning ends, and thus they usually ask display questions, checking whether our students know the content. Okay, display questions, like 70 to 80 questions were display questions. And they are hurried because they need to cover all the syllabus, and therefore insensitive towards children's playfulness. And we do have playful scenarios, fun, but then it's usually out of teachers' sphere of attention, or they actually disrupt children's flow of playfulness without noticing it. I will show you one, but the video doesn't work. This is the boy. He is actually spinning the cover of the cup for 2 minutes while the teacher is playing the piano, actually having a music lesson at the back. But the teacher is very good, allowing him to do that. But then he continued to do the spinning. And then another one is actually after a thematic time that the children, they have finished the assigned work, the group activities. And then he is getting a riddle book and reading with his peer. The teacher came in, and the teacher said, "Have you finished all your work?" He said, "Yes." "Give me see. Let me have a look." And then he said, "This is my drawing." And then the teacher said, "Oh, it's too simple. You can add some more things on the drawing. Don't play." So he has to continue to draw reluctantly. Okay. Frontline teachers find it very difficult because of the parental expectation in our community. And therefore, teachers attribute the difficulties in acting play-based curriculum to the lack of time, space, and human resources, because Hong Kong is very tiny. We just got skyscrapers, and usually the early childhood settings are on buildings. We haven't got outdoor space. And however, if we look into Anji play, we have to see that for a child-initiated and child-centered directed play, soft resources like children's experience, the imagination, and the here and now interaction with peers and adults are actually vital. I just got this spectrum. David is one of the author. They consider play as a spectrum. Okay, and therefore, you can find that it can be initiated by child, directed by child if we call it free play. But if in the spectrum, you can also find, adult-directed and adult-initiated. But if we always have adult-directed and adult-initiated, do we still call it play? Okay. And what kind of play-based pedagogy actually, sensitive to our Chinese children? I start trying to look for it. Because when I try to teach, many of my students say, oh, you are always using the Western theories, the Western pedagogies to teach us. Well, we cannot use it, we cannot implement it. And therefore, I try to look in China. I searched from China and came to know about Professor Hua through someone's introduction of East China Normal University. I really have to bow to her. And then she took me to Anji in 2013-14 and met up with Miss Cheng. You can have a look. The first time I came.
是安吉幼儿园游戏教育的简称。整个安吉县28家幼儿园的13000多名孩子都在接受这种游戏教育。老师只给孩子提供游戏的材料，至于游戏怎么玩，都由孩子们自己来决定。这是孩子们上周五刚发明的新玩法，孩子们给它取名字叫高空滑梯。诗雨是这个游戏玩法发明者。
我就是第一块木板，用2个人把它抬上去，第二个是全心协力把它抬上去，第三个也是齐心协力把它抬上去。你是怎么想到要这么玩？因为我觉得这么高滑下来很刺激。
薛哲宇今天是第一次玩，一开始很是小心翼翼。
我不敢滑越恐高。
第二次，他尝试着背靠滑梯滑下来。第三次，他玩起了花样。
When I saw that, I was actually overwhelmed with feelings. On one side, I felt very excited to see this kind of play in China, in my motherland. But on the other hand, I felt sad because I think of our children in Hong Kong. And therefore, I initiated and took teachers, heads, organization heads, to come to Anji to have a look of the real and genuine play, of how they can work it out, of how they can work out with very little resources at the first time. And apart from that, I also took the global network of learning through play to come here and to share and to give comment to our Chinese way of playing. Okay, we have Reggio Emilia, Carla coming here, and then she has also put forward her views. And at that time, when they come, yeah, we also took this, children playing around, teachers mingling that with the children, playing together, making herself even very busy, and all the work are directed by the children themselves, you can see. We also saw something that amazed our Western counterparts, some very risk-taking play. And also, we do find that the kind of plan teachers give minimal kind of input to allow children to develop their play. You see, with this plan, and then they decide something, and then writing their stories, their play stories, and then teacher reflect with them, okay? Using all these play scenarios to talk with the children, having the kind of problem-solving skills, or sometimes negotiating skills, or teaching geometry, or addition, counting, many things when they are having in the classroom. So, to conclude, what can I see from a Hong Kong's perspective? I can see children's initiation and direction in Anji. I can see playfulness. I can see their seriousness. I can see the flow of their work and play. I can see the spontaneous enactment of their here and now experiences through their spontaneous play and work. This is how the curriculum derives. Apart from children, I can see from teachers. I can see a shifting role of teachers just giving minimal initiation and direction. It's not just free, they will give minimal but open initiation and direction, like the environment. Yet, teachers are able to capture some invisible things. These are really variable. The invisible things are children's interests, and these actually are teachable moments. And they are also able to sustain the flow of the play and work. They are able to extend the flow with children's here and now experience. They are able to recapture and revisit children's prior experience through reflection and action. So, to end my presentation and my sharing, I would like to use Professor, your presidency, Xi, saying, there is no the best, but only better. So, I wish Anji continuously strive for true play and learning, and I hope the inquiry loop will never end. And I hope we can spread happiness, we can spread playfulness to children all over the world. Thank you for your attention.